Well, welcome back to the Reading and Writing Podcast. My guest today is Brendan Slocumb, author of the debut novel, The Violin Conspiracy. Since its recent release, The Violin Conspiracy has been receiving rave reviews, and it was chosen as Good Morning America's February book club pick. Brendan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Well, if someone listening hasn't yet heard about The Violin Conspiracy, how would you describe the novel?
Violin Conspiracy is a story of Ray, who discovers that his old family fiddle is actually a priceless Stradivarius. And this discovery catapults him into superstardom in the world of classical music. And right before the Tchaikovsky competition, which is the Olympics of classical music, his instrument is stolen. Will he get it back? Will he get to compete? Will he find out who took it? Got to read the book.
That's great. Do you remember the original idea that led you to write The Violin Conspiracy?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was summer of 2020. There was nothing going on except sitting down and eating and getting fatter and fatter. So I decided to start writing. These are stories that I've been carrying around since I was about 9 years old, and it was time to put them down and on paper and have someone read them.
So it was a pandemic novel, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, this novel is your debut novel. Had you written fiction before you sat down to write some of those stories and ended up writing The Violin Conspiracy?
Yeah, about 20 years ago, I tried my hand at a science fiction novel, and the story is great, but my writing was just not very good. And I was given some really good advice, write what you know and write honestly. So 20 years later, I started writing what I know, and I started writing honestly, and the writing had gotten much better in that 20-year time span. So Violin Conspiracy was born.
That's great. Well, you play music and you've taught music for many, many years. I'm curious, did you find any similarities between performing music and writing fiction?
Actually, yes, there were quite a few similarities. And in the writing, it was easy for me to actually sit down and have to sit and write for extended periods of time. I'm accustomed as a musician to sitting down and practicing for hours and hours. So that was no big deal. And a lot of things have been formulated the same way that music is. You have your introduction and your middle section and then your grand finale. So that a lot of things corresponded with the writing from the music.
That's great. Well, what was your writing, excuse me, what was your writing process when you were working on The Violin Conspiracy? Did you plot the novel before you dove into writing it?
I outlined the entire thing, and fortunately I have a really good agent who would edit for me on the fly. And that way I could write really fast, and, we would argue about things, and, this doesn't need to be in, and I would fight for it to be in. And, he would fight to take things out, and we just have these fights, and sometimes I would win, sometimes he would win, but it all turned out great. So everything was plotted out, and I just went from there.
And I'm curious, have you started working on a new novel now?
Funny thing is, I just turned in the manuscript for my second book a couple of weeks ago. It's currently being edited, and I'm going to take a short break, and I'm starting book 3 this summer, and I cannot wait to get started.
I'm curious, do those also have, are they set kind of in the music world as well?
I'm taking that advice. Write what you know. I everything has a hint of music in it. It's not music overload. You don't have to be a classical music fan or even a musician to understand and appreciate the themes in the book.
Hi, this is Jeff, the host of the Reading and Writing Podcast. I wanted to tell you about an app that can change how you plan parties and celebrations at your home. Drizzly. Drizzly is the most convenient way to buy beer, wine, and spirits, with delivery to your doorstep in under 60 minutes. Are you hosting a book club party and you need a couple of bottles of wine? Well, keep in mind Drizzly. Or do you and your friends make cocktails based on your favorite book characters or novels? If so, again, use Drizzly. That's DRIZLY.com. Drizzly is the #1 app for alcohol delivery. Again, that's Drizzly, DRIZLY.com. And right now, if you act, Drizzly is giving every new customer $5 off their first order. Just use the promo code FAST5 at checkout. Hey, this is Jeff, the host of the Reading and Writing Podcast. Thanks again for listening to the podcast. I have a company that I want to tell you about that I think you will definitely be interested in as a podcast listener. Family Sounds. Have you ever gone to a family reunion and traded stories and laughed with your relatives, and later you thought, gosh, I wish there was some way that we had a way to preserve those stories and preserve those memories when we're not face-to-face? Well, now you do with Family Sounds. Family Sounds can create an hour-long podcast that's just for you, that's just for your family, that tells the stories of your family and your relatives. And Family Sounds team, they're pros. They've done this before. They have lots of experience crafting stories for public broadcasting through radio and podcasts. They will use your family's voices as well as a professional narrator to tie the story together. Again, the name of the company is Family Sounds, and you can find them at family-sounds.com/books. Again, that is family-sounds.com/books. Family Sounds, your memories, your family in a podcast today. So check them out. family-sounds.com/books. Thanks for listening. That's great. Well, given your experience with the Violin Conspiracy and all of the rave reviews that it's been receiving, what writing advice would you offer for those who are working on their own stories and novels?
Same advice that I was given. Be honest in your writing, because if you don't believe it, how can you expect someone else to? And to write what you know, and to take every single criticism and critique that you get. Don't take it personally, take it professionally. Everything that everyone says is there's a nugget of self-help in there someplace. You can take whatever people say and you can apply it somehow, and it's going to help you. Don't take it personally. Just take it as a criticism and a critique to help you.
Sure. Well, you also have a podcast. Can you tell us about your podcast?
Absolutely. The name of my podcast is How Music Can Save Your Life, and I have interviewed some of the most interesting and fascinating people I've ever met, and they all have very similar stories to mine and to Ray's in the Violin Conspiracy. And, you know, just listening to these people talk, I feel like my IQ has gone up 150 points just listening to them. And some of the stories are just amazing and just fascinating. And I advise everybody to check it out. There's something in it for everyone.
That's great. And I'm curious, how did music save your life?
Well, when I was 9 years old, I started playing the violin, and friends of mine today are in prison or unfortunately dead because when they were breaking into houses and, you know, robbing people, I was in rehearsals and I was practicing, and I was on a school trip with my violin. And, you know, music took me around the world. It took me to college. It took me to places that I never would have had the opportunity to go and people to meet. And it really is a life-saving force.
And did you ever have to kind of force yourself to practice, or when you picked it up, I think you said you were 8 or 9, was it just something love at first sight, or you know, the first sound when you started playing?
It was, I like how you put that. It was love at first sound. It definitely was. That was great. I'm going to start using that. It was fantastic. I mean, I loved it. I wanted to practice every opportunity I got. Even when I didn't know how to play anything, I was trying things and I was experimenting with it. And I loved it. And it didn't take very much to get me to practice. I used to practice 3.5 hours every day.
Wow. Well, as we've talked about, you were a musician, and you've played music for years, and you've also taught music. How does it feel to have the success and have your first novel be picked by Good Morning America and have all of these rave reviews? How are you taking it all in?
This is the most incredible feeling I think I have ever experienced. And my cheeks are sore from smiling all the time. And all I can do is smile. And I'm so happy. I'm really happy that people like the book and they've received it so well. I didn't set out to, write an award winning pick or anything. I just wanted to write a good story that someone would like. And the fact that so many people are really into it, it's an amazing feeling. And I'm very, very grateful.
That's great. Well, where can people find you online to learn more about you and your book and your podcast that we discussed?
You can find me on my website, brendanslocumb.com, BrendanSlocumb.com. Same thing on Instagram. Drop me a line. I will be more than happy to, shoot you a message. I want to hear what you think about the book. Facebook, Twitter, all the same thing. Shoot me a line.
That's great. Well, again, we've been speaking with Brendan Slocumb, author of the new novel, The Violin Conspiracy. The book is available now, so go buy a copy. And Brendan, thanks for doing this interview.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Great.